Hey guys, happy Friday. I hope everybody's doing well today. Thanks for joining. We're going to do our standard bit here and let people trickle in over the next 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah, for those of you already on, thanks for joining, and I'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Okay, yeah, thanks for joining today. Like I said earlier, I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So what we're talking about today is obviously everybody's aware of the new agency LLPAs. We're going to talk about some functionality that we built into MCTlive here to help you kind of manage this on the back end, give you an idea of where, what you're dealing with as far as how this affects your valuation of your pipeline. We'll look at kind of a snapshot of the LLPAs as they are, if you're not already familiar with them, and then we'll talk a little bit about some recommendations too. So let's go ahead and get started here. Like I said, we'll do a little overview of the new LLPAs. Not really going to spend much time kind of just breaking them all down, but just kind of a quick snapshot of what we're dealing with. The direction and potential impacts, I'll touch on that a little bit, and then I'm not going to give too much commentary there. Just kind of want to focus on we have new LLPAs and then what we're dealing with there, and then kind of the reason for the deal here is just to or the webinar here is to go through this functionality that we have, and then maybe some touch on it a tad, some recommendations for how to deal with this in the future and what we've got right now. So, let's talk about the overview of the new LLPAs real quick. Again, everybody's probably super familiar with this. I know it's been out for a while now, and they go into effect. I don't have this as a bullet point here, but just as you all know, most of the new LLPAs do these loan level price adjustments from Fannie and Freddie go into effect with loans purchased after May 1st or after April 30th, May 1st and beyond. that's not speaking to the aggregators, right? So most of the aggregators have already pretty much implemented the new LLPAs. So probably already have that priced in. So we're talking pretty much about the agencies right now. But yeah, so what they've done is obviously we dealt with this after the mortgage crisis, right? Back in 08, 09, we saw a new LLPA grid come out where it kind of broke down LTV and FICO. Well, we've been dealing with that for several years now. Not much has changed. So now we've got a major structure change where now they're looking at the purpose of the loan, meaning purchases and cash outs. And for anybody that's been on a panel with me recently or heard me speak, I keep making this joke. It's probably getting old, but we used to have these things called rate term refis. Maybe one day we'll get those back. But obviously, that's one of the purposes that we where the LTV and FICOs are broken out. We've also got additional attributes like your condos, your manufactured homes, and units, and all those kind of attributes are also now broken down by the purpose of the loan and a broader LTV change there. And then, of course, we've got, this is not already in effect and not subject to today, but it's still relevant. Like it's still relevant with the LLPA caps given AMI and what we're with the first-time home buyer and the duty to serve. So we'll talk a little bit about that too here in a moment. But okay, so let's look at the here's a nice little heat map. Whatever the traders put together for me here. You can see where let's focus on purchase because that's where most of our production sits. You know, again, for those that haven't seen it, hopefully everybody here on the call has. You know, we've got new LTV buckets that didn't exist before, but then you can see the green, that's where we see improvement. So you can see this nice little, laying on its side L here where the improvements exist. And we see some declines here too, where the reds are. And then of course on cash out and on rate term. But then again, what I didn't include on this heat map was like a change in those attributes, like investment properties. So you did see some improvement in investment property and second home hits on those lower LTVs. So there's some of those that we'll see, you'll see getting better if you look at your current pipeline, if you have any non-owner cash outs, for instance. So before I move on to kind of some of the functionality, did want to talk a little bit about the AMI caps. You know, we do have, we are connected to the agency APIs that give us the area median income for a particular borrower or a particular property, I should say. We take that income and compare it to that area median income and to determine what the percentage of the income compared to the AMI. So and then we'll use that to cap our LLPAs. The other thing that's coming there is that high needs rural area, those kind of things, the manufactured, now we're talking about duty to serve, manufactured homes, high needs rural areas, those kind of, those caps, we are working to, we do have that data coming back in from the APIs now, and now we're working to implement those into the caps as well. So if you know of your high needs rural areas, be on the lookout for those. Probably not that many loans, but they definitely do exist. And so, but we'll have that functionality implemented pretty soon as well. Okay, let's move on to looking at this functionality here. So the effective date functionality, what are we trying to accomplish here? As we saw on the heat map on the previous slide, you got some improvements and some worsening, right? A lot of worsening with these LLPAs. So what we're looking at here is, or what we're trying to accomplish here is, what do you do with them, or how do you measure your pipeline? I know I've talked to a lot of you on the call here, and some of y'all have already done this manually throughout the pipeline. or through the pipeline. And it's not funny, but you know, we've got less loans to look at, so it's manageable. But as our pipelines are growing now, then you know, it becomes a little less manageable. But essentially, we've developed a tool in here where you can pick a date, and then the LLPA will fire based on the date you pick in your best X analysis tool. Just real quick on that, not showing this in the functionality today, but on mark to markets, we are using the lock expiration date. So if you have a lock that's expiring before 4:30, we are using that lock expiration date to fire the old LLPAs. And if you have a lock expiring after 4:30, April 30th, then we're using the new LLPAs. Obviously, once it's new LLPAs all the time here within the next couple of days or a couple of weeks, or a week, I should say, then we will have, we'll pull that, and it'll just be the new LLPAs, because we'll run into, you know, where you can't physically get the loan committed and purchased in time. But for now, we've got a pretty good opportunity to take advantage of where we think things are going to get better and where we think things are going to get worse if you have loans available for sale. So how would you go about doing that? Well, first off, everybody on the call probably knows, and if you don't, please contact Client Success Group, CSG, or your trader, and we can walk you through it, or even help you run some of this analysis for you. But we've got the ability to upload your loan numbers. I think everybody's probably familiar with that, on how to identify loans you want to price. But we also have these program filters. So you can come in here and you can select all your conventional programs if you want. So it's just that drop down on the best execution filters here, and you can select those programs. Click on just checking the boxes, and then you'll see those programs kind of populate there. The date option. So the date option's always existed. It's been primarily used against static rate sheets. You know, when you post bid tapes, you select a date. That's a different story there. But this date option here is for, you know, if you got a Ginny price or a Ginny execution you're pricing against, or you got a best effort rate sheet, or we used to have these direct trade models that date option made sense to do, or just a static agency price that you didn't pull in the rapid commit price, the live pricing from the run pricing option there. So, but now where this date option is super critical is for this functionality that we're displaying today, is in this instance where I've got a 421 date option, well, that's going to fire my old LLPAs. If I change that to a 5.1 or 5.2 or anything past 4:30, that's going to fire my new LLPAs. So what we've got here is that date option where you can just click in that box and pull up a calendar, and I'll show that in MCTlive here in just a second. The other things we're going to focus on today are, for this particular analysis here, is we're going to focus on this show adjustments checkbox here that I've highlighted in green. That's going to be important for the export. You're going to want to see those adjustments. That way you can do a nice little compare of what's changing. And investor restrictions. So the reason that that's important too is I want to touch on that too, investor restrictions. I know I have it covered up by my nice blue arrow here, but this drop down is a restriction drop down, meaning if you check a box in this drop down, it's going to restrict that investor. So if I've got, say, Fannie Mae, and I check Fannie Mae, it's going to restrict it. So if I check all investors but Freddie Mac, but Fannie Mae, if I leave those two options open, it'll price to just those. It'll restrict everybody else. So, okay, now I'm going to jump around. So if you'll bear with me just 1 second, I'm going to jump into MCTlive here. Hopefully you can see that on my screen. And I'm going to pause for just a second just to see if there's any questions here. So we do have a good question here. The question is, I'll just read it verbatim so it's no confusion. Once we set the date option, this date option right here, does it stick or will it reset the next time we open MCT? Great question, Logan. I appreciate that, because that kind of gives me an opportunity to talk about something else here. This date option, we can set a default for each client, meaning if you want it to be 7 days, if you want it to be 100 days, whatever you want it to be, we can set that default. So that kind of answers the second part of the question there, is that what will happen every time you open up the best X analysis tool here, what will happen is it will go back to whatever our default is that we set. So if you have any questions, you want to change that from 7 days to 10 days, whatever it is, please let us know, and we can, client success or your trader, we can change that. So most people are come in set up as a 7 day, but if I change this to say 5/1, the next time I come in here, it'll go back to its default. So I'll just click on that best X analysis tab there to refresh, and you can see it went back to my default of 4/21, which happens to be 7 days. So hopefully that answers your question. So the default applies to both. So again, this date option is firing static rate sheets, like a Fannie Mae static rate sheet, or in this case, a Citi BE, and it will apply to everybody. So if I'm pricing, or if I have a 7 day bogey here, that's my target. And let's say my Citi BE rate sheet has doesn't have a 7 day, it has a 15 day. Well, then it's going to price to the 15 day. If I set this to 16 days, it's going to price to the 30 day or whatever is available on that BE rate sheet. So great questions there, Logan. Appreciate that. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do here, I've already actually prepared myself a little bit here and got some loans ready to price. So I've already uploaded 50 loans that I'm going to price out, but so I can come in here, and like I was showing on the slides there, I can select programs, and it'll filter down to just those programs. I'm going to price everything I have, and then I can also come in here and hit restrict investors. So see all these check marks here? That means I'm restricting all of these, but I've got this one unchecked, so I'm going to leave that one unchecked because for this analysis, I'm just going to run that one. For the first step here, and I can check the show adjustments box before or after. I'm going to wait for just a second to check it so you can see the results after checking that show adjustments. So we're going to hit that raw data best X and pricing 51 loans against Fannie Mae for a 4/21 delivery option. And then I'll pause here. We got another question and while that's running, I'm going to see. So I noticed that some of the non-owner loans are labeled Con 30. So we do price to like a best X, and so your base price should be, or we do normalize programs based on a best X. So if you have a non-owner coming in, it should say Con 30 non-owner, unless the pricing is better as just a regular Con 30. So there's always some anomalies that can happen there. If you see that it's slightly better as a Con 30, or maybe the pricing is the same because of the note rate, so Con 30 or non-owner, which one do you want to commit it as? We can definitely look into if you see any anomalies there and check it out just to validate the normalization, but definitely let us know. But it always should show the normalization like Con 30 non-owner or Con 30 as the best one. Okay, so those priced out. So again, 4/21. So what's happening there is I priced to the old LLPAs. Now, if I scroll down here, I don't see any adjustments on my screen. So how am I supposed to know? I can always click a loan number, and it'll pull open that the adjustments there, right? So I can always click that and see those adjustments. But ultimately, what I can really do is I can click this show adjustments, so I can see this in bulk. And the bulk piece will be critical on this analysis that you're trying to do. So now that I've checked that show adjustments, you can see I've got all my adjusters lining up here across the top, or excuse me, across the matrix here. So if I click on that adjuster, I can see what the FICO LTV, which adjuster is actually firing in there as well. So very handy. And then you'll notice this little Excel icon. I can click that Excel icon and it'll export this data just as I see it here. So then the next thing I would do is I would come in here and select a 5/2 or anything after May 1st there. And so I can hit that raw data best X, and And so what we'll do here is we'll see the pricing come up for that 5.2 pricing, and then we'll see the adjusters. Okay, so now what you're saying is that's great. Where do I do my comparison? So we're not doing the direct comparison here in MCTlive, but this is actually giving us the data. So commit a bit of a faux pas here and take us out of MCTlive for just a second. And kind of like the cooking shows, I've already got us some prepared turkey here to show. So what I did is I exported the old the analysis with the old adjusters, and I did a little Excel magic here. Gave me a weighted average price on the old one, so I've got about a 65 basis point hit here, and then I've got to back that up, I've got the new adjusters. So the new adjusters here, this new this export here is with the new adjustments. So with a delivery after 5.1, right? And then again, with some Excel formulas, I went ahead and looked up the old adjusters based on that loan number, did a little VLOOKUP there. And then, so I compared the two. So you can see here, let's just fix these numbers here. And so we can kind of see it in our format that we like. New adjusters have got about 80 basis points on these 51 loans, weighted average, versus the old adjusters have got about 66 basis points. And I kind of knew that the new adjusters are going to be a little worse. You can see that here, we're about 15 basis points worse in this population of loans. But I think the important part here, and I hope everybody agrees, is that I want to see these things that are improving. Look here, I've got 7 loans that are improving. This one by a lot, right? So you got some property type adjusters, occupancy. So this is probably that low LTV, low LTV property type. So occupancy adjuster here that's showing up. So this one's improving by 7/8. So this is where we see that if you have the ability to hold that loan for a little longer, the good news is that the hedge cost where we were last summer is not where we are today. Y'all, for those of y'all looking at the MBS TBA screens, you can, if you're just looking at those Fannie 6s, the hedge cost, that roll cost, is pretty flat. And if you look even more at the 5.5s, but it's a tick. So from front to back. So so if you do have the ability, I know it's not easy for everybody to hold loans. Some people need to get those off their books for warehouse line purposes. Maybe you got capacity now, or maybe don't. I don't know. But definitely, I think everybody would agree if we can hold these loans, I would, just because the LLPAs are a little better. Now, that being said, if it's an aggregator execution, you got to let it go. There's no point, right? You might as well get that going there. So it's really your situation. And so when I say hold these loans, I'm really saying if you're an agency seller there, right? Now, so let's clear that filter there, and you can see again, I'm about 14 basis points worse. So I've got all these. Now this is on the other side. If these loans are not funding, well, not much I can do about it, right? But if they are funding and you have the ability to rush this a little bit, let's get these out the door. I don't think I'm telling anybody something they don't already know, but if I've got the ability to sell this loan and get it out the door quicker, it behooves me to get that thing purchased by May 1st. Again, if I'm looking at Fannie Freddie execution, right? So in this 51 loans, I've got about a $26,000 hit. Hopefully those hits are already priced in on the front, depending on when the loan was locked and when you implemented those LLPAs on the front end. But definitely have some work to do, that I have a window of opportunity to take advantage here in the next couple of weeks to either get some loans out the door, maybe hold a couple that I would sell. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the functionality. I would say as far as recommendations go, I've given the recommendations as far as implementation goes, as far as selling loans. What I think and what we think at MCT is that adjustment changes is going to start to become something that's slightly more normal. So when I say more normal, I'm saying like not once every 10 years. I'm saying like, you know, maybe we'll see this yearly and just adjustment changes. So I think this functionality, even though we've kind of crammed this into a tight window of a couple of weeks, I think this will be very useful in the future to kind of do the same sort of exercise. The other one that I know everybody's kind of got it on their mind, every lender I've talked to since this adjuster was introduced, it's the first thing they want to talk about is that DTI adjustment. DTI adjustment is just heartburn in production and manufacturing cycles, just because I don't have to tell everybody we got loans that are locked and then the income changes and it's all over the place. I will say, remember MCTlive, we have our pipeline delta reports. Those pipeline delta reports do track DTI, so that I know turning on change notifications within your LOSs can become quickly overwhelming, especially DTI. A processor underwriter can generate probably a good 50 emails on one loan within a day just on income changes as they plug and play to try to get that income correct. You know, the DTI change that's currently implemented to come into August, you'll start seeing that in your LLPAs because we're using the same functionality, right? We're going to say an August 1st deadline there, and then we obviously once you have a DTI above the threshold, that'll take hit, assuming that lock is expiring on after August 1st. So you'll start seeing that trickle in, and then as aggregators change their adjusters over time and make it effective, you know, at a future date, we can use that same functionality to put that into play as well. Listen, it's Friday. I want to give everybody their time back here. So we got 33 minutes back, and I appreciate the questions. I got a couple more here I'm going to follow up with offline, but I'll stick around if any other questions come in, and happy to answer them. But I'll stick around for another 5 minutes or so, but other than that, I appreciate everybody joining. Hopefully this functionality helps you, save you a little money, and be useful for you in the future. Okay, thanks everybody.
Paul, looks like you just had one more question come in as well. So I don't know if you wanted to follow up with that person after or not.
No, thank you, David. So mark-to-market reporting, thank you, Paul. Paul too. Mark-to-market reporting is updated. So Paul, like, basically we're using lock expiration date as the threshold there. And so it is updated. You should have seen those come in as of last night or maybe the night before. And so if you have a lock expiring with Fannie, Freddie adjusters, some of the aggregator adjusters have already been updated, doesn't have an effective date. So you'll see those on the agency side be priced into your mark-to-market if the lock expiration is after April 30th. Hopefully that answers your question, Paul. Thank you, David, for bringing that up. Cool, perfect.
It's like one more there for you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Hi, for that. When will the new LLPAs be applied for loans that we sell to the agency? So again, if you're if you're in your best execution analysis, whenever you sell those loans and or whenever you price those loans when that date option that we were talking about on there, if you price them to a 420 delivery, that's going to use the old ones. But if you price it to a 5/2 delivery, that's going to use the new ones. So they're both available for you depending on the date you pick. And then when you commit those loans, remember we're going to do it based off of the delivery date. But if you get a loan purchase, it's actually a great question. If you get a loan let's say you commit a loan that's got an expiration date of 5/2 at the agency. Well, if that loan gets purchased prior to 5/2, then you're going to get the old adjusters, because remember, these agency adjusters are affected by purchase date. So super important to keep that in mind. You don't want to go out there and just commit it with a 5/2 delivery and then get it purchased on 4/30 and you got the old adjusters. So good question. Okay, everybody, I'm going to call it good here. I appreciate y'all sticking around for some questions. David, thank you for hosting us here. And if anything else comes up, please hit me up on the email or CSG, or hit up your trader, and we'll be happy to tackle anything you have. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.